Hey everyone, so there's been a lot of big news this week, but one of the big stories is that CoreJJ has his green card. He is able to now declare North American residency, which means Team Liquid can finally field their full intended starting roster. Now, this hasn't been officially announced by the team, but their team manager Dodo tweeted out a photoshopped image of Twisted Fate holding a green card, and CoreJJ's residency has changed, I believe, in the global contracts database. So this is a real thing. It has happened. And now Team Liquid fans can be very excited to see what this team has become. And I want to talk about this in the context of a tweet that I put out in reaction to this, which was a tweet in praise of Ayla and the role he's played stepping in the meantime, during most of the lock-in tournament and during the early parts of this regular season. And in case you didn't see the tweet, here's what it said. CoreJJ being able to play will make Team Liquid slightly better. They were already playing fairly well. Can we take a moment to send some praise Ayla's way? He stepped up for his org and filled in some huge shoes very admirably. I hope we see him back in the LCS soon. So that was my take, and I got basically two types of responses, and I got a lot of responses. There was a lot of really good engagement with this tweet, and one of the kind of classes of response was expressed mostly through likes and retweets, and the other was expressed mostly through comments. So you can imagine there was a bit of a different trend in those two. I just want to make it very clear up front, in case it wasn't, that this was an Ayla praise tweet. Okay, but the people who responded a lot in the comments, and I'd say more than half of the comments were basically, why are you disrespecting CoreJJ? How can you say that this only makes Team Liquid slightly better? Why are you equating CoreJJ with Ayla so closely? All these kinds of things. And I was very surprised by this kind of pushback. And I think it's mostly hinged on that word slightly that I used. I said CoreJJ being able to play will make TL slightly better. And I think I can acknowledge up front that the tweet would read totally fine if I just took out the word slightly and said him being able to play will make Team Liquid better. Okay, great. But I used the word slightly to emphasize just how highly I was praising Ayla, how good Team Liquid had been able to look as a team with Ayla in, even though he was filling in a substitute role, filling in for CoreJJ, who has been the best player in the league for multiple years now. And I just wanted to emphasize, even though they're putting in this amazing player, it's only going to be a relatively small upgrade just because Ayla has been so good in the meantime. He has not cost them. He's not looked like he was out of his depth or anything like that. And so really the main thrust of this is saying Team Liquid have been good with Ayla. And so, I do want to talk about how much and in what ways CoreJJ will improve Team Liquid by coming in. But I just want to comment on this and I guess talk about why people had some issues with this. I mean, first of all, I think some people read what I said as if I was saying CoreJJ as an individual player is only slightly better than Ayla. But that's an interpretation you can only come to if you believe that a team's performance is a simple sum of its parts. You take 5 players, you basically rate them on a numeric scale and say, add up all of their values, and that's how good the team is, which is completely ridiculous. That's not how it works whatsoever. Team performance is very much not just a simple sum of the individual player's quality. You have to get to a gestalt. You have to get to something where they fit together and become greater than the individual parts. I think I also had some pushback on this for saying hey, we only saw Ayla for a few weeks. How can you say how well he would have held up over the course of the season? He was playing with all these great veteran players that made him look good, all these things, which partly comes from, I think, people not realizing that I've spent over a year watching Ayla in Academy, and some other people watched him in Oceania before that as well, and have actually a pretty confident and well-supported read on this player and how good he is. And B, that player, that's a lot of people have trouble identifying an individual player's contribution in the context of how well their team is performing as a whole, which is something you do have to put a lot of effort into, and you have to do a lot of learning about to be able to, first of all, either identify a player playing well on a bad team or a player playing poorly on a good team. And I think, if people are pushing back, especially if they struggle with, evaluating how much I can bring in as an analyst and saying, how can this guy know whether the player is actually good or not? I mean, that's just going to be how much you give me credit as an analyst or not. But as I said, I've been watching Ayla for over a year, and I've been very high on him for over a year. Many times throughout 2021, I said that I believed he'd be a mid-tier LCS support if he was promoted right then, and I think he has validated that with his play so far. And I believe that his performance has not been perfect, but it's been very good and admirable with some really big plays, especially on Thresh. I believe I've said, although I haven't gone back through my content so far this year, but I believe I've said elsewhere as well that I believed Team Liquid could even win the spring split with Ayla if they had to play with him the whole time. Not necessarily that they'd be like shoe-ins to do it or like big favorites, but they would definitely be in the running for at least reaching the finals and potentially winning the split. So all of that is to say that I'm very confident in my high praise take on Ayla. And even if I see CoreJJ as a better player, and even by a fairly noticeable margin a better player, that doesn't mean that it's disrespect to Team Liquid to say that putting the starter back in is only going to be a slight improvement compared to the Ayla version. So how much will CoreJJ actually improve Team Liquid? Obviously, he's got way more experience than Ayla. He's been doing this a very long time and been at the very highest level, won a world championship. He's going to have a broader champion pool and play more different styles, which will show up more as the meta changes throughout the year. A really big thing that people like to bring out is that he's going to have more and kind of better shot calling than Ayla was bringing, and that his leadership and in voice in game is such a big deal. And I think that's true, but I also think, and this is part of where kind of the Gestalt idea comes in, and the idea that Team Liquid aren't going to dramatically improve from CoreJJ coming in. They don't really need a whole lot more shot calling, I think. They've got players all around, super veteran players, vocal players. They don't need a fourth or fifth shot caller to come in, and now suddenly they're going to have good shot calling. I think they had it already. I don't think they're going to change their approach. There's always going to be a little bit better information flow, probably. Another voice that maybe helps fix one decision here or there. But I don't think this is like they had a weakness and now it's shored up. Like they didn't have a weakness in the shot calling area so far. They're also going to be, of course, laning things and mechanical things that CoreJJ will improve on. But I already had Team Liquid power ranked number 1. I power ranked them number 1 going back to the preseason in December. Being 1 or like 1+ now that CoreJJ's in, that's not a big jump. I thought they were still number 1 right now with Ayla. And that's how I saw them in the LCS. So I think there's also a little bit of a sense that that we should be extrapolating the level of Team Liquid relative to international performance. And with CoreJJ, does that mean that they'd actually get to quarterfinals of Worlds? And with Ayla, they wouldn't make it out of groups? That's so dramatically premature that you can't comment on any of that. And I don't think it's useful to try to use that in an assessment of the team's quality right now, mid-February. So I just leave all that aside and I put it in LCS context only. So those are my thoughts on all of this. I think Ayla's great. I think he should be in the LCS based solely on player quality if you left aside things like budgets and player contracts and fit and all that kind of stuff. And I hope that we'll see him there by next year, if not summer or something going on. But I do think CoreJJ will come in. He'll help Team Liquid. And I'm really excited to see that lineup. I'm excited to see Team Liquid Academy with Ayla back in. I think he's the best player on that roster and will help them quite a bit. And I hope we can all be excited about watching Team Liquid and the rest of the league going forward. And focus on the positives and not that equating an LCS player to an Academy player is demeaning to the LCS player, because I don't think that's an accurate or useful take whatsoever. Thanks for watching and supporting my content. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and check out the channel memberships if you want to get access to custom emojis, special roles in the Oracle's Elixir Discord, and other perks.